Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
All right, guys, it is Thursday. We have an ECB press conference today. I'm personally feeling a little bit like, I'm still pretty tired. But, you know, it's the summer ECB press conference. I don't know if we're going to have a whole lot of opportunities. We are getting a lot of movement off of the bottom of the hour news here. I feel bad about being a little bit late. Let's see here. We had initial jobless claims, a decent amount higher than expected. We got 243,000 versus 229 expected. Also, the Philly Fed Business Index was 13.9 versus an anticipated 2.9. Interesting. So, we will have ECB press conference here in about 15 minutes. Let's go to the charts and kind of see where we're at, relatively speaking. Okay, so here are the treasuries. We are on the up move with the initial jobless claims being higher than expected, showing some economic weakness. So the treasuries are moving up a little bit here, but it's still within the range that we've had within the past 2 days. S&P 500 took another pretty big hit on the nose, although, you know, I don't know if it's a huge deal because you know, we had this decline a few days ago and they retraced that pretty easily. Then again, maybe this is where we finally break this range and things go like lower. We do have options expiration this Friday, so we probably are in a vulnerable position where the flows for at least, you know, the next few weeks could turn down. Here's oil. Oil getting a pretty good pop yesterday. Just a little bit of a pullback today. Gold just looks amazing. Silver should be so much better than it is. What else can I say? Right? Okay, copper. Oh, copper's getting slammed down to new lows, 4.3. And the Japanese yen holding those gains from a day ago or so, and the dollar index is at, or our synthetic dollar index is at 103.46. Got to specify that because it is slightly different from like spot dollar index. Okay? And Bitcoin still holding around 65,000. Well, I'm kind of sitting here with this chair. There are things that I really like about this chair, and there's things that I really don't like about this chair. And on Monday, I replaced, or I didn't replace, I put in the lumbar support in it. It's kind of aggressive. I don't know if I like it. I'm kind of thinking, well, you should continue to do it for a few days. See how your body adjusts and so forth. But really, I just want to be in the other chair. I like. I don't know what we do with that chair. Maybe somebody will buy it. Because it's not a bad chair. One thing I do like about that chair is the armrests. The armrests are so much better. There we go. What time is the COVID puppet getting out of the race? Oh man, good question, Octavius. Right, just he doesn't waste any time. Octavius is just like, right, let's get right into the political stuff, huh? By the way, good morning, Jake, Octavius, Namrus, Uzi, Apol. Yeah, so I got two things going overnight that I think are interesting and don't have direct market importance, but are long-term relevant. Speaking of COVID, I have a friend who has it. He's talking about it in Discord. Oh, okay. So I guess let's talk about Biden first. So the news that I'm getting now, and you know, like, I tell you what, this is something where like everybody's leaking stuff now. Is what I'm seeing. It's like you'll see news stories, and they are giving like the same information, but they have significantly different taglines. Like you know, like the money phrase that they got from their source is different. So I think that multiple news outlets are getting the same general news from different people. Okay, but the general news that we're getting is that Biden over the past day or so has become more open to dropping out of the race. Okay. Now, the story that I saw that I thought was really eye-opening was that apparently it has gotten to the point with the staffers in the White House that Kamala Harris staffers are like actively berating the Joe Biden staffers. They're saying it's time to pass the buck, even though like what is that even supposed to mean? That's not correct usage of the phrase, but that's what they said. So it sounds to me like Kamala Harris is actively pushing to become the Democrat nominee, and Biden is starting to realize that it's not going very well for him. Something I would point to, we didn't really talk about it yesterday, but maybe we should have. Joe Biden had a conference with other Democrats wherein he was trying to make the case about his electability, essentially. And the people that were on the call all said that it was like a terrible performance by himself. Like he was stuttering and losing his train of thought and all of these sorts of things that we've been hearing about and seeing about. And one representative pushed back on him. This was a representative, by the way, who had a son that served several tours in Iraq and I think was eventually killed. And Biden was talking about Bo again or whatever. This is like, he just always goes back into that thing for some reason. He's obsessed with it. And he kind of compared what his son did and his son, and it was a little offensive because his son only served was like in the National Guard and served one tour. Anyways, so that, you know, like representatives were kind of starting to get mad at him, let's say. And then all of a sudden, we start getting these news stories that Joe Biden has COVID. Now, to be honest, this headline seems weird to me, actually, because didn't they say that he was sick for the debate? So was it he was sick for the debate and now he's got sick again, except for that this time it's COVID? It just seems awfully peculiar. And in fact, my understanding is that they're going to put him in hospice for it. So I don't know about that. Yeah, they were saying that they were going to put Biden in hospice. Let me see if I can find that story. What I was reading this morning was that they were going to put him in hospice. Let's see here. Maybe I can just find it with Google. Biden hospice. Maybe that wasn't like a headline story, and that was just people. Yeah, because I'm not actually getting anything when I'm searching for that, and I would think that would be pretty. Hey, ignore that I said that part. Oh, here it is right here. Oh no, you know what? I think I fell for a Babylon Bee headline. That's funny. Democrat leaders make tough decision to place Biden on hospice following COVID diagnosis, but it's from the Babylon Bee. That's the headline that I read. Ignore me. I'm being stupid. You know what? I'm not too sharp this week, I don't feel. The kids have kind of got me on a bad sleep schedule now, and I'm not getting as much sleep as I really need. Anyways, it really sounds to me though like that it's like on the final run. Like when the shooting happened, that kind of seemed to give him a little bit of new life. Like, oh, the pressure is off of me, so maybe I will survive, sort of a thing. But now a day later, there's still heavy pressure on him and he's sick, and it just sounds more and more likely that Joe Biden is going to drop out. And right now, it sounds like the plan is Kamala Harris. You know what? Here's the thing. I gotta help you Democrats out there, okay? I'm a Republican, but I feel that the country is better served when both parties are strong. I think that there are, elements and tendency of left-wing politics and elements and policies of right-wing politics that we need, and they counterbalance each other in a really effective way, or at least they have throughout most of the United States history, and I still believe in that system. So when the left is not doing so well, I kind of think they need a little bit of assistance. Y'all's need a little bit of assistance right now, okay? So here's what I'd say to Democrats. If I had the whole Democrat Party in a huddle, they wanted my political expertise, my political opinion about what they should do, this is what I would tell them. You're going to lose. You're going to lose either way. Whether you have Biden or whether you have Kamala Harris or Gavin Newsom or whoever it is going to be, the chances are that you are going to lose the presidency. I'm not sure that it would take a miracle to stop Donald Trump at this point. And so you have to decide now how you want to lose. The decision that the Democrat Party has is, how do you want to lose? And I would argue that you are better off ditching Biden, because if you keep Biden on the ticket, then really what you are saying is, yes, we lied to everybody and we don't really care, and we're going to continue to be like this. That's what I think it says to the American people if you keep Joe Biden on. Whereas if you replace him and you have a good process during replacing him, that's another thing. Because if it just turns into Kamala Harris just kind of takes over the ticket, I don't know if that will necessarily help. But if you have some sort of abbreviated primary, Kamala wins that, something to make the American public feel like that you are trying to make a change in the party. You will still lose, but you are on the path to repairing the damage that has been done to the Democrat Party. And so that's the advice I give the Democrats. You're going to lose. Choose how you're going to lose. And quite frankly, you know what? If you're going to lose, put somebody that you don't really want in there anyways, right? Like Kamala Harris seems to me like she is an unashamed power seeker type person. You know what I mean? And so if you, I don't think that you really want to run her when you have a serious chance of winning. So get it over with now. You know, put her in, have her lose. That's her chance. You don't have to deal with her anymore, right? Her or Gavin, I think would be a good choice, simply because they'll lose and you don't have to deal with them anymore. I'm gonna laugh so hard when they win. Yeah, it will be funny. I mean, it's not an impossibility, right? It's just at the current time, is like a miracle. But you know what? When I say that it would take a miracle for the Democrats to prevent Donald Trump from gaining the presidency, that doesn't mean that I think it's like an 80-90% chance that Donald Trump wins. Because there has been so much volatility. Like, the chances of a miracle happening are actually probably really high. So I think it's probably still a 50-50. It's still a 50-50, but Donald Trump is really far ahead. Another issue to consider is what kind of effect these things have lower on the ticket, okay? If they run with Joe Biden and Joe Biden hurts the ticket all the way down and Republicans gain control of the Senate, they expand their control of the House of Representatives, because right now it kind of looked like they might lose the House of Representatives and gain the Senate. Anyways, okay, if Republicans like increase their power and they had the presidency, they would probably be able to do whatever they want. And Donald Trump will not be as timid about legislation as he was before. He will come in with an agenda and he will be pushing them to try and push through as much as he can. I don't think, some of the Democrat concerns about like Project 2025 and all of that sort, that's not Donald Trump's plan. It's not. In fact, there are some things in his economic plans and so forth that directly contradict Project 2025, and the Project 2025 people would not like. Like, I don't think that those guys would like tariffs, for instance. But I digress. So, maybe you still lose the presidency. You've got to do what you can to try and prevent big losses all the way down the ticket. And again, I think the only way that you can really do that is you have to repair the American public's perception of the Democrat Party. Because right now, the Democrat Party has basically been exposed as a tool for the elites and people in power to maintain political power in opposition to what the people actually want. And that they will lie and do anything to maintain that power. You're gonna have to destroy that. You have to address that, let's say, not destroy that, but you're gonna have to address that concern in order to get people to vote for you again. And that's a tough pull too, right? Because like one of the big reasons, one of the big things that people on the left really don't like and are kind of making them feel like that has been the policy as it pertains to Israel. And doing the turnaround and saying, okay, we're going to be like pro-Palestinian and we're going to vote in favor of recognizing a Palestinian state and all of those, that would be politically disastrous too. So okay, so let's see your comments. Uzi, I still can't relate how power can be that important to someone. Like, brah, go chill on the beach in your 80s, man. Well, yeah, like, especially for Kamala Harris, like, there has been so many awful stories about what's going on with Kamala. Like, nobody that works for her likes her. And there's like like there's this thing with Donald Trump where he'll lose people, he'll fire people, like they'll turn south. He will get what he wants out of people, and when they stop giving him what he wants, he kicks them to the curb hard is Donald Trump, right? So you will get high-level defections from time to time from Donald Trump, but there are also people that are extremely loyal over there, right? But Kamala Harris, it just sounds like it is complete executive dysfunction over there. So I don't understand how anybody could preside over what she has in the vice president office and things going as bad as they have, and then saying, you know what, I should be president. It really is like you have to be just completely oblivious, man. Like there's got to be a point when you say, hey, I've reached the level of my competence. You give me more responsibility, I can't handle it. I need to go back down a level. And like that happens in jobs. And of course you don't go back down a level because that would be less pay, right? But when it's like being president, and you're clearly not up for the job, I just can't imagine continuing to push forward, especially as aggressive as Kamala is. They see it. It's like, maybe it's not just Kamala, it probably is staff, because again, we're hearing that like Kamala and Biden staff are like yelling at each other and stuff. So I did made some Ethernet cables yesterday, and the Ethernet cables that I have is what they call Category 7. Category 7 is not technically actually a thing, but like it was proposed and people made cable for it. And the cool thing about Category 7 cable, I guess you could say, is that there is shielding around the pairs. So like Ethernet cable is like 6 pairs of wire, and they're split off into, 8 pairs, and they're split off into sections of 2 and twisted around each other. That's what your phone cables are, and then Ethernet is just, phone cable is 6 and Ethernet is 8. Where is a phone cable for? I don't remember. Anyways, I digress. The shielding prevents the signal from being affected by other things, like especially if you're going to have power cables going alongside your Ethernet cables, that can disrupt your signal. So having the shielding is kind of nice, and the shielding should allow you to get like a higher throughput through the wires. But they never went for that standard. And I've always kind of wondered, and a lot of people say, well, it's just because nobody actually needs that kind of shielding and that good of a cable. I'm the conspiracy theorist in me kind of goes like, I'm not so sure that's true. Because the thing that I find when I'm working with those cables is they are just a real pain in the butt to do. Because you got to pull the foil back and everything. Oh, by the way, we should pull at the ECB press conference. There's like this foil, and you have to pull the foil down around 4 sets of cables, and then on top of that, there's like this metal wire inside of there too that like spirals around the whole cable itself as well. And so I made those cables yesterday, and I'm still finding these little bits of cable, these little bits of like metal wire everywhere from doing that. I probably shouldn't have done it over here, but I kind of wonder if maybe the reason that they didn't pick up Category 7 or Category 7 didn't pick up, catch on, is because people found it too frustrating to actually like make the cables. I also hear my dirty conspiracy. I shouldn't say this. I'm going to tell you anyways, but don't tell anybody that I told you this, okay? I think it's because it's harder to tap those lines. So if you're worried about your data being skimmed, maybe get some Ethernet cables with the shielding built into it, huh? Wire shielding is super important. Electricity doesn't move in the wire. Power and information is the electromagnetic field created around the wire. Shielding is important in all things sensitive. There you go. Willie Brown will be Kamala's pick. You really think so? I'll turn on...
Growth could also be lower if the effects of monetary policy turn out stronger than expected.
This is
Growth could be
Laguard
higher
here.
if inflation comes down more quickly than expected, and rising confidence and real incomes mean that spending increases by more than anticipated.
I saw some speculation about who Kamala's pick would be, but I don't remember what it was.
Inflation could...
There was this whole thing about,
turn out better than
are you going to accept the
If
VP
wages
debate?
or
And the Trump
profits
campaign was like,
increase by
well,
more than expected.
we don't think that by that point Kamala will be the vice president
Inflation
nominee anymore, so we're
also
not going to say
stem from
anything
the
yet.
heightened
That was funny.
political tensions, which could push energy prices and freight costs higher in the near term and disrupt global trade. Moreover, extreme weather events and the unfolding climate crisis more broadly could drive up food prices. By contrast, inflation may surprise on the downside if monetary policy dampens demand more than expected, or if the economic environment in the
When I
rest of the world
come over to Reddit,
worsens
like
unexpectedly.
all of the top stories at the top are that Biden
Looking at
has
financial
COVID.
and monetary conditions now. The policy rate cut in June has been transmitted smoothly to money market
Oh man,
interest
so
rates,
this is another thing that's
while
going on
broader
that I
financial
find
conditions have been
really
somewhat volatile.
fascinating, frankly.
Financing
Like it
costs
is
remain
fascinating to me.
restrictive as our previous policy rate
So
increases
over in California,
work their way
they
through the
have passed a law that basically
average interest rate on
says
new
that the
loans to
schools
France
cannot have any
down to
policy
5.1%
about
in
notifying the parents if
while
their
mortgage
child is
rates
transgender,
remained unchanged
which
at 3.8%.
is such an insane policy to
Credit
me, man.
standards for loans
Like
remain
14-year-olds will get all sorts of
According
crazy
to our
ideas
latest
and
bank lending
like
survey,
they're very prone to
standards
doing
for
that.
lending to
They
firms
can be
tightened
very
slightly in the
easily
second
manipulated by people,
while standards for
and
mortgages
the people that are
eased
the best
moderately.
equipped to be able to handle those
Firms'
issues
demand
and
for
guide
loans
a
fell
teen
slightly,
in a positive direction
households'
are their
demand
parents.
for mortgages
And you're
rose
specifically
for the
saying
first
we, the
time
state,
since
want to
early
make sure
2022.
that the parents are in the dark about what's
So
going on.
overall, credit
That is
dynamics remain weak.
such a bad policy.
Bank lending
The reason that they want to have that policy, again, is because the left is perpetually triggered, right? What the left is still not over their mom telling them, no, you shouldn't sleep with that man, that boy. You know, don't have premarital sex, don't do this, don't do that, right? They never got over it. And they thought they were oppressed by their parents. And so now they are more concerned about the parent oppressing their child than they are about the child's actual well-being. It's an insane policy. Anyways,
we will keep
just had to insert my opinion about the policy in there, okay?
for as long as necessary.
But I guess the reason why I want to insert my opinion about the policy in there is so that you realize like how big of a deal this particular policy that they're implementing in California is to people. I really don't see how you can be a parent and feel safe in California right now. Really can't.
Dynamics of underlying inflation.
And Elon Musk agrees with me. And so Elon Musk, he said, because of this rule, we are finally moving our headquarters, the Starlink headquarters or whatever it's called. No, it's not Starlink. What's the name of this company? SpaceX. SpaceX headquarters is in California, and Elon Musk has said that because of that policy, they are going to move their headquarters out of California and over to Texas.
Alex, please.
And Gavin Newsom was not happy about that. So when Elon Musk announced this on Twitter, Gavin Newsom turned around and posted this thing where Donald Trump talked about Elon, saying that, you know, Elon was desperate to beg Donald Trump so that he would fund all of his projects, because the truth is that Elon Musk is nothing without the funding from the government. You know, all of his projects have gotten money from the government. Tesla would not have become profitable initially if not for the subsidies from the government, for instance. So
let me start with the second one, and I'm going
Gavin Newsom
read for you a paragraph that
retweeted this comment from Donald Trump a long time ago, saying you bent the knee, that you're doing it because
which is that national
you need
fiscal and
Donald
structural
Trump
policies
to
should aim at making
give you
the
money.
economy more productive and competitive. which
So
would help to
it's an
raise
interesting
potential
attack,
growth and reduce
but
price
it's
pressure.
also really interesting to me that
Effective,
Gavin
speedy and full
is
implementation
triggered
of the
enough
Next
by that to
Generation EU
respond like that
program,
and everything.
Progress towards capital markets union,
Some
and the
wild stuff
completion of
going on
banking
over there.
union, as well as the strengthening of the single markets. Are
And this just kind of fits into this larger thing,
and
which is
increased
that
investment in the green
Silicon Valley
innovations.
and the entrepreneurial class has all of a sudden done this huge turnaround. Like these guys, I mean, it really started during the Obama years, but basically post 2008, a lot of money because of the low interest rates went to tech, and tech really started to flex their power. And tech basically kind of co-opted the Democrat Party in some respects. But like a lot of the Democrat Party's strength comes from these left-leaning individuals
fully and without
in California and Silicon Valley and Wall Street too.
and debt ratios
right?
on a sustained basis.
And what has happened was, you know, these guys did, you know, wanted Trump out. They felt that it was like too much, just too much everything all the time. It's chaos all the time, especially the news cycle. It really was. So they wanted, you know, let's calm things down. Let's get things back to normal. Let's put Joe Biden in. And they have not liked what has gone on under Joe Biden. And so this entrepreneurial class has coalesced and thrown their support behind Trump for Trump coming back, and is a major factor behind how well Trump is doing right now. They are contributing a lot of money. I think that Elon Musk said is going to contribute like $50 million a month or something like. It was like some insane amount.
Over the course of the last 2 days.
And there's lots of these people. Like one of the things is,
I see very much the discussion.
okay, so there's this podcast called All In,
And on the other hand,
and I don't watch this
you're only
podcast.
asking me
Sometimes I will see
on
clips
the
on
other hand,
TikTok, and I tend to
to
watch
do
the clips
with,
on TikTok, but I've always kind of like not really liked them because they're like Chamath. It seems he's kind of like a liberal. Chamath is
obviously
in
well,
particular. And apparently what's been happening on All In is that they've all basically support Donald Trump now too.
clearly high, has
And
slightly,
so I don't watch the pod, but
competitive even with
I
the
do watch the subreddit.
but we believe
I watch the subreddit, and oh my gosh, the people on the subreddit, they just hate the podcast now. They are so mad about them all going
and we
pro
spend
Donald
a
Trump.
lot of time actually looking under
They're
the
really like, some of
wages,
these people are
profit,
really, really angry
productivity
about
on
it.
the basis of rather limited information.
So
because we
that's
don't
kind of the
have
background that's
a
going
lot of
on here.
specificity
Is
at this
that a pretty
juncture, and we'll have a lot
significant,
more of that in the coming
powerful
weeks
class
and
of
months.
people have
But suffice to
changed
say
political
that
alliances here
wages,
to
whether you are
pro-Trump,
measuring it,
and
with
that's
reference
going to
to
have big
compensation
implications
per
going
employee,
forward. It does seem to me, to be honest with you, and look, I'm a
on a
Republican.
basis,
I'm generally a Trump supporter. I'm not going to say that he was like my first choice, but I didn't think that his first term was that bad.
for instance,
And I think that they could do some good things in the second
Point
term.
us
I'll
in the
probably vote
direction
for him. And I
of
don't think that he engaged in insurrection or
rather
any of these other
elevated
nonsense things.
wages,
Say.
which were
But
embedded
it does seem to me
taken into
that the
account.
Trump administration is kind of like almost
This
up for
does not
sale.
come as a surprise to us.
Like
There is a very large
Bitcoin is taking off
catching up
because these tech billionaires that are invested in Bitcoin and they like Peter Thiel want Bitcoin to do well, and they have convinced the Trump administration to be a pro-Bitcoin administration this time around, which they weren't the first time.
Debated that, including with representatives of the national central banks.
And it does seem to me, I think some of these people are making the realization that like left-wing policies have some really negative consequences for businesses and are overall negative for the country. But I also think that for a lot of them, that it's really just about their money, right? Like they know that they'll make more money with Trump.
It is heading for.
And that's kind of unfortunate.
There is a limited element of
JD Vance owns Bitcoin
at very low levels. Productivity.
Well, my understanding is that these
0.6,
tech
so
entrepreneurs were a significant factor in Trump picking Vance.
Our expectations is that with consumption
I did read stories
demand,
suggesting that
the recovery will strengthen, and that will raise productivity as hoarded employees will be asked to respond to the demand that is.
I like how California always forgets about the crime and such, how the business owners have to pay their own money, the pressure watch they're building every single morning.
On that front,
well, it's pretty wild, this whole thing, because they keep saying that like crime has actually gone down, even though we're continually seeing all of these stories about stores closing down because of crime and like mobs committing crime and stuff like that. And then you go and you look at the left, and the left all say that it's all BS, that crime is actually going down and it's all political, and that companies are just making an excuse to justify closing down the stores and hurting poor people. Meanwhile, the municipalities aren't actually reporting crime. So like they say that crime has gone down, but some people claim,
and that leads me to one.
And this is one of those situations where I think it's really kind of difficult to suss out the truth, because now you get into this complicated thing about, okay, so which municipalities are not doing it and how much crime, like
specifically referred to.
But they claim that actually crime is going up, and it would be going up if they were reporting it. But because in California, like number one, a lot of these things, like the theft, is not actually a crime.
So
right, like it's you can steal, as long as it's not over a certain amount, they're not going to prosecute.
Last weeks, and that we looked at together in the last 2 days. Sorry, it was a bit long, but you addressed it from the other hand, so I had to.
Illinois is following suit. Heard from the deputy sheriff in our area. Crime is so much higher than the numbers are saying. Most aren't even being tried, and cases are dropped or not showing.
The September rate potential.
Well, when it comes to Chicago and New York in particular, a lot of firms have left and moved to Miami. They have.
Would be on what we're currently hearing from the United States, a possibility of higher tariffs and more trade tension. Is that something you are discussing in the Governing Council as also in terms of reinflationary?
I mean, I think the fact that people are fleeing these areas really speaks for itself.
The decision that was taken this morning was a unanimous decision.
Nobody is saying I loved living in Austin for a long time, but it's gone downhill and the crime in there is just so terrible I can't live there anymore. I don't hear people saying that.
Meeting by meeting. And not.
But I read people saying that about California, Chicago, and New York every day.
So the question of September and what we do in September is wide open, and will be determined on the basis of all the data that we will be receiving. Obviously, our projection from June will be a point of reference.
But who knows? Maybe we'll learn.
Plus all the other elements that we will be receiving will be taken into account.
There are all sorts of things about how society is impacted by the internet, how society is impacted by the way that cities and countryside interact with each other in the modern day and everything, that I don't think that we understand very well, that I don't think that our systems account for very well, and that I don't think our culture accounts for very well. You know, like the Constitution of the United States, I would argue, was written primarily as a response to the 30 Years' Wars. We don't talk about those anymore. But in their time, that was like their World War II. And so many people died during the 30 Years' War. And it went on for a long time. It was very devastating, and so it was very prominent in people's minds. And so the Constitution was written with the idea to prevent the sorts of issues that created the 30 Years' War, which prominent among which was having a state-sponsored religion.
To the rest of the world would matter.
So that's part of why in the Constitution it was that there can be no establishment of religion.
Whatever political decisions are made.
Right. So now what's happening is
in the future.
We are having...
Thank you, Madame Lagarde. And the next question goes...
We're having new age conflicts. They're not like wars on the battlefield. They are intellectual wars being waged on the internet. And there's lots of problems and issues in people's lives. Not to mention all of the issues that we have with like environmental toxins and our diet and our activity levels and everything else. But because things are so comfortable, we don't really have to face radical change on those issues.
6 weeks ago.
But then the other issue is that even if it was and you had radical change probably wouldn't be very effective at solving those issues.
You all know how those governing council work.
So we need to just have slow, steady, incremental changes trying to address these things.
A proposal is...
And it really seems to me like some people on the left went like really crazy with some dumb ideas. And who knows how it will go for those cities in the long run, but I think everybody else is kind of watching that and going, okay, this is the thing that happens and we've got to be aware of so that it doesn't happen to us.
The 3 rate cuts unchanged, and the meeting by meeting data dependency and no predetermined rate path going forward.
It always comes back, I guess, to like how do
you pointed to
enact
the issue
change
of confidence, and we're not the only central bank in the world to have referred to the need to be sufficiently confident about the inflation path and the disinflationary process. I think we are at the stage where, with additional data. So
I'm reading here in Discord now, somebody posted a story. Trump warned Powell not to cut rates before the election. Markets are still expecting them.
In the weeks and months.
Yeah, Donald Trump does not want there to be rate cuts before the election because it could help the Democrats and Joe Biden, and he thinks that it's inappropriate to be cutting them in front of the election.
Process that
but
is at work at the moment.
They're not supposed to factor those things in.
And we shall see. But it will encompass a whole range of data and indication. And
why is the Federal Reserve an independent body?
We will still.
I present you Exhibit A.
Approach
the politicians.
Inflation outlook. Therefore,
the politicians really try to put their finger on the scale.
We will also look at underlying inflation.
And they're going to put. You can't have political considerations in your economic in your monetary policy.
We will continue to review.
You really can't.
The same way.
Thank you, Madame Lagarde. And the next question goes to Jean-Philippe Lacour of AFP. Jean-Philippe, please.
It's kind of funny. This is why I always get so triggered when I see some of the things that conservatives say about like the Federal Reserve is all a giant scam and we need to just abolish the Federal Reserve. And the whole reason why libertarians want there to be an audit of the Federal Reserve is so that they can second guess Federal Reserve decisions and bring the Federal Reserve down. That's why they want to do it. And why am I opposed to it? I'm opposed to it because I know that what's really behind this is that the politicians want to be the ones that make those decisions. And we know what they would do with it. They would make bad decisions.
Years. And the second question is
not that the Federal Reserve makes awesome decisions all the time.
Process, not just this meeting, these 2 days, but what comes prior to this, can be hampered by the fact, allegedly, that
I still kind of feel like that a cut in July would be appropriate, but it's probably too late for that.
From burnout, according to a recent survey, you may, of course, have news about. Thank you.
So in my old synchronized swimming days, the coach used to say,
well, so we had that pop off of the news.
Difference will be
it's come back down to where it started at. And while the ECB press conference has been going on, it's been extremely quiet.
I'm not going to comment on the policy avenues that have been flagged by President von der Leyen, because the speech was at 11 o'clock this morning. We were in the middle of our own discussions. I think that all I can do at this point in time is offer my congratulations for the re-election by such a margin. But of course, we will look very attentively at what the proposals are at the European level. For the moment, we are also very fixated on the April fiscal governance framework that has been decided and which is obviously vetted by the Eurogroup and which will see implementation.
AI is effectively useless, and it's created a fake it till you make it bubble that could end in disaster, per James Ferguson, founding partner of UK-based macroeconomic research firm Macro Strategy Partnership.
Say that number one,
I do personally believe that AI is in a bubble and that it's not very useful.
80 to 90% of our staff is highly motivated by the mission of working.
So it's kind of funny. At my work, there was a time where it was like everything ChatGPT, and we gotta work with this thing now. And
I would also say
like everybody was kind of complaining about it, and like now it's kind of been dropped.
Very hard in this
and I haven't heard very much about the AI.
That
in the last
this
month
work
or so.
that translates into a few recommendations, into a few numbers, and into a few
all of the people in the tech sector, I think, are all kind of
substantiated
coalescing behind the same
massive amount of
conclusion
work
that it's just not that useful right
by
now.
what we call the shared services. And I'm extremely grateful to them for the work that they do, and I'm extremely privileged to lead this institution. I'm not saying that, because those would be my speaking points. I'm not reading from any speaking points. I really mean it. Second, because we have to be mindful of the very large amount of work that is discharged by many of them, we of course have programs in place. We have a lot of means and tools that are available for members of staff who feel under pressure, who feel that they're not getting the right opportunities. And we have beefed up those mechanisms. Just to give you an example, since I started as president of the ECB, we've put in place a whistleblowing procedure. We've installed a mediator who's been starting his work earlier this year. We have numbers of workshops for the leadership in the institution to understand the ramification of leadership.
Man, it's really bizarre to me how
not only motivate,
JD Vance, he becomes the vice president, and now you suddenly see all sorts of content attacking JD Vance on Reddit.
And certainly with staff representatives.
On cue.
We conduct our own surveys as well to corroborate or understand better what is at stake. But I take huge strength from the motivation of our staff and the determination that they all have to do a good job for the Europeans.
So I'm just browsing Reddit, and I'm just things to chat about. I'm not so interested in what's going on in the ECB right now. Market really seems to be sleepy.
Thank you, Madame Lagarde. 2 questions from me.
This is a story that's been going for a long time that I find really interesting. Is the states where Pornhub will be blocked as of 2024. Because it started with it was just Utah, and everybody was like, well, everybody will just get a VPN. I don't know anybody that has a VPN. Everywhere that I really think that it really was just like people in Utah don't go to Pornhub anymore. If they want that kind of content, they get it from somewhere else. But then other states started doing it, and it's spreading.
Thank you.
And Pornhub's strategy has been, we're just going to block those states. And I'm really interested to see how that ends up playing out in the long run. Does Pornhub eventually give in and start verifying ages?
Of course, we have
Or
take into account
do the states eventually give in and get rid of those rules?
the increase in
I don't think
tariffs
they're going to.
or policies that
I think at some point it's going to become business profitable to just verify people's ages.
with which we have either strong trade or financial.
I find that one really interesting,
links.
just how it
And obviously,
keeps
given
spreading.
the size of the US,
Because Reddit has really strong opinions about it, and so far I think
the
that they've been wrong.
developments taking
It's
place
spread
in the
it.
United States will be very carefully assessed to see what
Oh
consequences
man,
it might
Tenacious
have
D's
on the
Kyle
European
Gass dropped
Union
by
and on the euro
agent.
area in particular.
Man, that one escalated so much faster than I thought it would.
Magnitude of
The Kyle Gass thing. But you basically,
guess
he
you're
said something
referring
about the
to
Trump's
interest
shooting
rates.
is
Movement.
that was
That would be needed.
insensitive as well.
If
And
the
like
wages
everybody
were not
dropped it.
to
Yeah,
decline as
way
expected.
to catch up on a
First of all, I will
2-day-old
deal with
story there.
if
Well, I know that it was basically like Tenacious D was basically breaking up over it.
research
Like Jack Black was not on board with his comments. I actually kind of suspect that Jack Black was kind of like, yeah, I kind of feel that way too. But then thought about it and was like, no, I have a somewhat family-friendly reputation still. I'm Bowser, etc., etc., etc. I need to get away from this. And so he threw him under the bus. It's kind of how I feel what happened. But that his agent dropped him. That's new to me.
Downward. And it's pretty it's not basic because none of that is basic.
That his
and,
agent
a
dropped
lot
him.
of
That's
developments
new to me.
Have
So
not
it
had
really
a lot
is
of
going
historical,
poorly for him, huh?
previous examples. But there was a period of 2 years of very high inflation because of the way in which employment relationships are organized in Europe. There was an element of catch-up. And because of the staggered determination of collective bargaining agreement, annual...
Did you try just running an ad? No, I did not. Did it give you an ad?
The deferred impact of inflation.
I had ads turned off. See, YouTube is at the top of my little control over here. Focus on your live stream and let YouTube insert ads for you.
Public sector, private sector, it's
Turn on,
before that
dismiss.
the impact is
I
heavy.
haven't turned it on.
And the catch-up, once completed, will return the employment relationship.
Now
and the
stream started to
bargaining
buffer and I
agreement
used ad
process
blocker, so I was
to
curious.
a
Oh, I
more
getcha.
path. And if I'm to believe what our national central banks see in their respective numbers in the 20 member states, they see a return
You know,
to
that's another one that I'm really interested to see how it, you know, I've been following this from the beginning.
25. And
You
if
want to
we
hear
also-
my extended story of YouTube? Here's my
So,
extended story of YouTube.
I'm not going to entertain
2003.
hypotheses where all that
I graduate and
would-
go on a
would be
mission.
wrong because there's too much corroboration.
2 years later, 2005,
Too much by way
come
of,
back.
both
And
driven, but also empirically determined.
I remember, you know, so I've been away from the internet for 2 years and I come back to the community that I spent all my time in.
We will do
And,
what we normally do.
you know, like an IRC chat.
Reassess on the basis
And
of the
people are
data,
posting all of these
and
links
we
to
take the
YouTube
decision.
videos.
and
It was like a
continue
brand
to
new
be
thing.
restrictive or
And
restrictive
like
if it was
people
necessary,
were kind of like
so
not
that we
sure
can
how they
return
felt
to our
about it, I
target
guess.
in a timely manner. And
But this
that
was
is
before
the
it had gained really like
invariable in any of our reasons.
widespread
Return to
prominence. So it
target
was another one of
in
those
a
things where it was
timely
like, it's
manner.
kind of weird to me that I was like in on that like from the very beginning.
Thank you, Madame
And
Lagarde.
I remember
Next
thinking
question
like,
goes to
oh,
Gabriela
like
Bufacchi of
people have tried to do online video before and it always just sucks. But on YouTube, like it worked and it was like, oh, okay, so they're spending all of the money now. Obviously, this isn't sustainable. Like, how are you going to make money from doing
First
this? Right?
question is on the
Fast forward, like what?
And,
How long has it
I
been?
go back
20
to a
years
sentence
almost?
That,
Right?
is written.
And,
domestic price pressures are
It's
still
not
high,
profitable, right?
Services inflation is elevated.
So I understand it. It's not
and
profitable.
headline inflation
And
is
so
likely to remain above
YouTube is
the
trying to do
current
things to make more money from it.
So this
But
is
it
not
kind of
really
seems
new,
to me
but
that
it
the
gives
things that they are
the
trying to
idea
do on
of the
YouTube
cut rates
probably aren't making making them more money. It's just turning people off.
Without pre-committing,
I was totally okay with the ads because it was like, well, I know that YouTube needs to make money and the creator makes some money from it. So yeah, let's do ads. But then like they kept adding more and more ads and longer ads, and you'd start getting really scammy kind of ads, and ugh.
If I may, my second question is.
And then everybody started blocking it. So then, so then they're going after the ad blockers, and I just don't think that that's a winning
you said credit
strategy.
And
but how long is that going to take to play out? It might be another 20 years.
Financing conditions.
Maybe another 20 years from now, they'll just say, you know what? Running a service like that just isn't worth it. We're going to stop.
You will keep on
and shut YouTube down.
restricted
Could it happen?
for quite a while.
Nah, I don't think it could happen. I think that YouTube will still be around 100 years from now.
The monetary policy statement.
Like if it came to that, the government would be like, okay, we'll run YouTube.
Target, and that is.
Can you imagine?
And we are not at target, and there's time to be had before.
I've also started to see the new narrative of how YouTube has been harming itself in its own profit.
What should you look at?
Well, quite frankly, a lot of it comes down to that the people that get put in charge of these services just aren't really qualified to be making the decisions. I'm sure that they probably have good executive experience and everything, but they just don't seem to understand these communities and how to run a business that is primarily based on a community.
All measurements, all indicators that will be coming in the next weeks and months.
That's one of the things that just blows my mind again. It's like, how can you guys watch these things play out over and over the same way and then be like, oh, I'm going to try it too?
It's clear.
Okay. When you're a business that is primarily premised on a community, pissing that community off destroys the business. So you can't do the same sorts of things that you do in the rest of corporate America, where you just viciously slash costs and nickel and dime people to death and all of these sorts of things. That destroys your business when it's the community.
To see whether or not it confirms
Reddit seems to be the only one.
We are seeing.
And I really don't like what Reddit has done either, but Reddit seems to be the only one that's become like a corporation sort of thing and hasn't made those mistakes yet.
You asked me a second question because...
Well, they've made those mistakes, just not to a strong enough degree that it's destroyed their community.
In terms of credit, because there's a slight difference.
That and the alternatives are terrible. Man, that whole thing, I'm a little bitter about that. I was like, yes, let's move to a different website. Let's not have Reddit anymore. There's so many things I don't like about Reddit. And then they created Lemmy. And if you haven't been to Lemmy, man, let me tell you.
Has been extremely low.
Lemmy's a crazy place. It sucks.
And when you
it is like the only people that post there are like, Chinese communist apologists and like crazy people. And it's really like 2 or 3 crazy people that just post freaking everywhere on Lemmy that like ruin the whole thing for everybody else. And then on top of that, the interface sucks and the performance of it is terrible. Oh, Lemmy is like the let's replace Reddit. It was such a dud. Do you have a 9 to 5? I do. I am a site reliability engineer for a company that does customer relationship management software.
That could mean more investment, which is
and more generally speaking, I would recommend against trying to make your full living off of scalping futures. Income is not very consistent. There's not a lot of edge available to you. If you are doing well, it's unlikely to last over the long run. And so I would always have some other forms of income supplementing you, even if you're doing well and you're trading at that time.
Do you see us getting to September with no appointment yet? Thank you very much.
Now, if you're doing if you really want to make like trading your job still, then there's some other directions that I would take, right? Like you can trade futures, but you can like swing trade futures, and or even better, you can do a momentum strategy. And if you get a good momentum strategy going, then you can start a fund, and a large fund can be a consistent living.
and the interconnection between weight,
So that would be a good
profit,
one.
and productivity.
With stocks, there is a possibility that you can make enough money from stocks. I think that you would still want to be doing some swing trades to some extent, and option plays probably as well. But there are more people that are able to make a living off of it in the stocks space. Or you can do an ICT. Oh yes, and then the other thing is you can have a YouTube channel that and lie to everybody about how successful your trading is and how good of a living trading actually is, and they will all follow you, and you can make enough money off of YouTube alone to live. That's another way to do it. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not interested in lying to you like that. So we just have a small little channel, chugs along, still here, and I'm pretty happy.
Banco de España is a prerogative of the Spanish government.
And it's probably not what
Indicated very clearly
you want to hear,
for the next
Sergio Rossian, but
hopefully,
it's the truth.
that
If you're looking for like
governor
some way to escape the 9 to 5 jail
but is the
and become rich, etc., etc.,
It's something that we recommend.
it's not day trading.
Is that they have
It's not day
to
trading.
be knowledgeable.
You look well rested. I don't feel
economics,
well rested,
finance,
to be
banking.
honest with
I
you.
hope that that will be the case again.
You know what I hate is it's my eye. This eye right here, like when I'm not well rested, it kind of droops a little bit like that.
President Lagarde,
And then on top of that, my eyes are starting to become a little lazy sometimes. I think that's because what I will do,
and it could
I really need to stop doing this.
enter
I'll take my contacts
the
out,
second it's
and then I'll lay in bed and read my phone a little bit
reading.
without my contacts. And so I can still read the screen because it's close enough. But because I have like a difference in astigmatism, it's
refresh the thoughts
hard for me to use
do in
both
the next
eyes,
round.
essentially.
And what are the areas?
So I pick one eye, and I tend to pick this eye.
For next one. Thank you.
And so this one doesn't get
Thank you so
as
much
much
for taking care
usage
of
or
us, Marie.
exercise because of
I
that.
think I might do a lot of
And then you
reading
get kind of
stories during
sleepy.
the
So I
summer
have to
for
do
my
like
grandchildren rather than
eye exercises in the morning and all this sort of stuff.
But I'll come to
But
that.
really, what I need to do is I need to just stop doing that.
So,
But
Well,
this
obviously
eyelid
something
kind
that
of
we look
dripping
at
down,
carefully.
I think
And,
that's
we
genetic.
certainly
Is there
observe
anything you
that
can do about that?
we have recovery.
But I guess you're right. It doesn't look
Recovery that is
too
led
bad
by
this morning.
Services supported
Well, let's
by
make it
what we
big.
call the virtuous circle between higher employment in services and consumption
It's
of services.
drooping a little bit, but it's not too bad
I
today.
remind you that service production
maybe
was
I
up
slept better last night than I
0.7%
realized.
Above
I don't
Q1
feel
level.
rested.
That was the
I
number
want
in
to,
April.
you know,
The service
fall
PMI
asleep at
remains
9:30 and get a
expansionary,
full 8
a
hours, and
lower
I
than
haven't
where
been
it was,
getting
but
that.
still very expansionary. And the total employment in services has also significantly contributed.
Another thing is I've been going a little bit lighter on the
So
workouts.
services is
right.
definitely
Like a couple of weeks ago, I was maxing out.
It's
And then
clear
I
that,
think that when I was
on the
maxing out, I hurt my
side, it's
elbow
not the
because,
case.
I mean, I
And,
felt fine
manufacturing has
afterwards, but
actually,
then I
declined,
started getting this
in
elbow
the last,
pain.
few months.
It's still
And
inflamed.
The other aspect which we are also looking at very carefully
Yeah, you
because
can't really
it
see it,
helps
but
to have a forward-looking
Still pretty inflamed.
vision.
And
The level of
the tendon
investment.
can
And,
still get
investment remains
a little
weak,
inflamed.
driven also
I think
by
it's
the,
healing, but
tight financing conditions.
so I've been
by the
going lighter on the
uncertainty
workouts from that.
experienced by the corporate. But
I'm
we have
25 and I'm
recovery,
going to my second university for a
and
career change, but I'm scared
we will continue
it might
to
be too
observe
late for that. The
carefully
current
where it
economy is very
coming
bad.
from. Suffice to say at this point that it is service-driven.
So yesterday, I was
manufacturing-driven,
speaking to a
and that
man
investment could certainly be
that
stronger,
when he
going
was
forward.
35,
The other element which I point
he was a
earlier
milk
on
farmer,
is this issue of export.
and he decided he was going to
This is also a
change.
domain that we
So
will
he went back to
carefully
school and became a tax lawyer.
going forward, and
And
in
he
particular
made
what
pretty
is
good money being a tax lawyer.
of the European Union and the euro area relative
That's a
to
pretty
other,
big change to make late, but it worked real well
other
for him.
economic,
So really,
nations in particular. China.
what's the change that you can make? You say informatics? I don't really
So to
know
go
what.
Back to your question, which is
I mean, I
very
kind
linked
of
to
know
with
what
the
that
strategy
is,
review.
but
So it is not a strategy review.
Is that a specific thing that
It's an assessment.
the study of computational systems, including their structure, behavior, and interactions, involves practice of information processing and engineering of information systems. Informatics has computational, cognitive, and social aspects and is synonymous with computer science and computing as a profession.
So it required that
It's computer
we
science.
really, as I said at the
Sounds
time,
like that
turned
will
every
be a
stone
good way to go.
and
Especially
looked at everything that
if you have the opportunity
use that
to
you
specialize
decide
in
how
some
you
of the
decide
areas that
how
are really
you
seeing strong
communicate
growth.
And
Like, I do believe that artificial intelligence, large language models, etc., is like a bubble right now. But there is a lot of value to be gained from data engineering and artificial intelligence. It's just you need to create models specifically for the data and use cases that you have instead of this, like, let's let the large language model do everything.
2%.
So if you are in
Inflation target will not be
data engineering,
in the future by
artificial intelligence,
president of the
and then the other side is site reliability engineering.
the other
Site reliability engineering is about keeping everything running. Those are three areas in particular in the computer science space that I foresee there being a lot of growth.
Thank you. And the last question goes to
You can do real well with it.
Anna Karismo of the Finnish daily Yle. Anna.
And yeah, it's probably never too late, especially if you're 25 years old.
Thank you.
Nothing.
Thank you
It's
for the
nothing.
opportunity.
nothing.
The inflation is running at a very different pace.
Quite frankly, you could make a change into computer science as late as old as I am at 40.
The annual rate is under 1%.
It'd be hard, but
And actually, we would
it
need
kind of depends on like what you were doing before, how locked into it you are,
problem
right?
or how
Like,
big a
I would not mind. Would not mind. I want to run a fund, or I wouldn't mind just making a jump over and trading for a bank or doing quant stuff for a
thank you
bank.
for your question,
I
but
think I would
that
enjoy
is the
that. I want to do
beauty
that
of
primarily because
euro
I
areas,
want
the
to know
beauty
more about
of,
those subjects.
Europe,
But
particularly the euro area,
making
because we
that
are a
jump
monetary
for me
union,
is hard
and we are
because
20 different fiscal
I'm doing so well with the current job, right? But to make more money than the current job, it would be hard. I would have to take a major pay cut to switch over into a different track.
between some countries and others. It was the
But
case
when you're
exactly the
25,
direction,
you
at the
don't
time
have
when
that much at
inflation
stake
run very
in the
high,
first
where
place.
you had
So,
Nordic
yeah.
countries or Baltic
So,
countries,
it'd be
where
fine.
inflation was hitting in the 20 plus, when the average was much lower, and the peak on a euro consolidated basis was 10.6. So this is the reality that we have.
Still
and we
sitting
have
here at 07, by the way. This has just been
each and every governor,
the
when
slowest
he
market.
walks in the governing council room,
We should probably be
is a
careful
member of the governing
when they're
council,
ending the
not
press
a
conference, which should
representative of
happen here
his or her
soon.
country. I'm not
There's
suggesting
often
that
a
it's not
little
in
bit
the
of a
back
move.
their
So.
mind, because of course they come from there, they return there, and they are very much aware.
Could
of
orange
the
lady shut up so
of
the market
their
can trade
economy.
normal?
But they
Well,
also
so
know
the
that we
press
are
conference is
competing
normally
in
an
the
hour,
area at large.
and because this time they started it at
make, you know,
45, we
decisions
probably
that should be
still have a good
nationally and
5 to 10 minutes left.
Thank you. That brings our press
Oh,
conference to
no,
an
he's going to end it right now.
We will be back here on September 12th, and up until then, we wish you a good
I really hate it when the ECB press conference
break and some vacation for many of you.
goes into the after the NYSE Open. Yeah. Robust, sustainable robot. Yeah. You know, I wasn't paying attention today, but it doesn't seem like that the market really cared too much about this press conference. So if I get my first job at 28, it's not too late. No, it's never too late. See, the thing that is like too late is when you have so many obligations that you can't afford to make the switch, right? But if you're not making super great money right now anyways, then you know, for a lot of industries, they are not going to pay, even if you're like at the top of your industry, you're not going to make as much as an entry-level computer science guy, right? And I'm guessing that's probably going to be the case for you at 20, 25 years old, right? Be pretty hard to have, moved up in other fields enough to where, yeah, I don't make any money right now. See, you're fine. You'll be fine. Where you make the hard switch, where you have the hard switch is when you already have obligations and assets, right? Like you have a wife and kids and a house and all of these sorts of things, and so disruption to your income from going to school and switching jobs and everything is a bit of a risk. I would have to say for most people that computer science has enough jobs that it's usually not a risk, but like right now there's a lot of people that did go into that field and are having trouble finding jobs in the current economy. I won't be that way for very long, but so some of those people they took that risk and they're kind of feeling a little bit of pain right now still. So those are risks. But like if you weren't making any money before, then you're not any worse off. It's just you're only out the money that you spent on the education, and you do get a job in the field eventually. You are going to make more money in the long run, so don't worry about it. The algo they turn on around lunch has been for the afternoons. The book is too thick. They have been, I've noticed that, actually, Octavius. Yeah, I haven't been paying attention around the close that much, but the past few times that I've looked at the book going into the treasury market close, the book is incredibly thick. Now, it usually is, like that close is really significant for the treasuries. And a lot of volume happens there, but like the amount that they're putting on, in the limit order book is like higher than normal even. Yeah, where do you live, Sergio? Sergio? How do you say it? Sergio? How long do you think that? Oh, Romania. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good. Because there's a lot of good software development outfits in Romania. Yeah, I think that this lousy economy where juniors can't get hired. I would say it might be another year or two. Now that they're cutting rates, as they cut rates, that's where it's going to ease up, right? That's where it will ease up after they reduce rates. And what was I going to say here? Another thing is, it's not that juniors can't get hired. It kind of depends on where you rank for it, honestly. So one of the issues is that you'll get people that really have no predisposition for problem solving and technology in general. This is the kind of like on the male side, like your gym bro or whatever, that they've never done anything nerdy or brainy in their life, but hey, guess what? There's money in computers, so they go into it, right? And a lot of those people will struggle because, they don't already have, you're building those problem solving skills really late in life, which is difficult. And you don't really have a true interest in the thing. So you don't end up doing stuff on your own and doing all those kind of projects and everything, right? And so those are the people in particular that have a really hard time getting hired. Whereas the kind of person like myself, like if I had been getting out of school right now and going into the economy, I personally still feel very confident that I would still get into the workforce, simply because computers have always been my thing. I've had a computer since I was 3 years old, and I've been completely obsessed with it the whole time, right? So for me, it's easy, and I've always ranked pretty high in the overall like industry. Not necessarily because I'm incredibly smart or anything like that, but just because I happened to have the interest for it, you know? Because I come back to this thought a lot for some reason. It's like we're having this conversation with my wife and kids that they were like, you know, there's some people that I just can't stand talking to because like the things that they want to talk about just seem so dumb and vapid. And I was like, well, if I took that attitude about life and, you know, I feel like that the things these people want to talk about are like vapid and beneath me, then like I would just never be able to talk to anybody because that's the way that I constantly feel. And so I have to take a different approach. But then, like, does that mean that it's, so I am, like, smarter and more serious than the average person? Maybe. But I think that it comes down to, like, what am I actually interested in, right? Because other people aren't stupid. It's just they have different interests and, you know, a different general like baseline of information that they're working from, like a different working model of the world that they're working from that I might not necessarily understand. And so this urge that like, I don't like these people, I don't care what they're talking about, that is like a sign to me that I just don't have the right model. Because you know, am I pretty smart? Yeah, but I think in general that I'm pretty average in most respects. So it would be kind of foolish to think, I'm smarter than everybody. I shouldn't have to deal with them, right? Instead, I think that everybody has something that they can bring to you, you know? But I have had a lot of success, and like, where does that success come from? I don't think it's because I'm particularly smart. I think it's because I'm interested in it. I happen to be interested in the right things. Right? Because if the thing that I was interested in was, you know, milking cows, I'd probably be struggling right now, right? You know, every once in a while, you'll run into somebody that is low IQ. But it's usually not the case. Most people are average. If you're constantly feeling like you're better than everybody else, there's probably a problem with you. And if you constantly feel like you're inferior to everybody else, that's probably not that you're inferior to everybody else. It's just, again, it's a problem with you. Let's see here. D. Your pulling and stacking indicators, it's calculating vertical. Can it populate the data horizontally at each tick level? Okay, so there is a summary. There's basically like a DOM sort of a thing that I've never released. Because I don't know. I think that it was primarily because was really complicated and I couldn't verify that it was actually working correctly. And maybe if I was giving it out to you guys, you would find all of the bugs in it and we would clean it up. And then you could have like the stacking and pulling, right? But this is another one where I don't really feel that you would get a ton of value off of that. Because the stacking and pulling that I'm showing is really has to do with aggregating all of the prices together. Like in Jigsaw, you have those stacking and pulling columns, right? Where it says, okay, when we ticked up and now there's a big stack here, relatively speaking, right? So I don't know how I would show that any differently from what Jigsaw does. The thing that mine does differently is that it's aggregating all of the levels together. Because what happens is you get these guys, he'll put an order out like this. Let's just assume this sim order that I put on here is a big guy, and he's just moving around. He's moving it around like this. It's got one order and he moves it around, right? And cancels it, and then he puts it back on and cancels it, right? That's what they're doing. And you got multiple people doing that at different prices. And so the question is, based on that, what is actually the resting liquidity? And when they're moving around between prices, I can kind of do filtering to say, like, what is the minimum and maximum amount of liquidity out there available? And that's what that indicator is doing. So converting it to horizontal, I think, would kind of defeat the purpose of the indicator. So it really comes down to what is it that you're actually trying to do, because it kind of sounds like that what you need is a new indicator that's completely different. Or to just look at the DOM. Plus D, you have the what is it called? You have the Santa Fe. You have the Santa Fe thing, and the Santa Fe thing kind of shows you that stuff, right? At each level. Oh, I don't remember. Does that one aggregate it too? I can't even remember what the thing I wrote does now. That's so funny. I gotta think. Oh my gosh. It's so funny. Oh yeah, I'll get a thought, and like the way when my mind bounces from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. So you got me thinking about the indicators, and then I'm like, okay, well, next week. So was it the 20? Yeah. So next Friday, I will be gone. We'll be gone from the next Friday, and then that whole week is when we're going to Oklahoma. So I will not be streaming, at least during that time. And I should have a decent amount of time to do study. So the last few times that we've gone to Grandma's house, I have done the studying for the Series 3 and the Series 65, right? Well, I completed those. So now what do I study? I guess I can do some work. I can do some more work on the indicators. I can write more scripts. I can work on the hedge fund. So when I think about, and so you had me think out the indicators. Well, okay, so what should I be doing with the indicators 2 weeks from now? To do speculator stuff. Back testing cached data. Let's see here. Maybe I shouldn't do anything with the indicators during that trip. Because one, I've done a lot of work with them lately. Two, I will just have my laptop. And some of those things, especially like the NinjaTrader indicators, I feel like it's a lot easier to build and work with here. I could do some of the stuff with Python. I think I can probably work that out over there on the laptop, and multiple screens doesn't necessarily help me. So I can do that. So I think that it's going to be right here. Going to put this down at the bottom. The affiliate program thing right now. That's, let's make a new category down at the bottom. On hold. The affiliate program thing is on hold. if you're sitting there and you're like, oh, I would really love to help Seth sell his indicators, and like I would go and refer people to buy his indicators, and then I would like to get a commission from it, and that like really excites you, then let me know, and you know, maybe that'll bump it up the list. But the way that it is right now, I'm thinking we put that on hold. Seth needs to be the one that sells it. Let's see here. If you're stacking and pulling can be displayed. Well, yeah, I get what you're talking about, but I'm just saying, okay, so like, why? So on the Jigsaw DOM, oops, I didn't mean to click that. On the Jigsaw DOM, there's these, oh, I know what happened is I moved that accidentally. There we go. Okay. You can display the stacking and pulling columns, right? And that's essentially what you're showing here. It's just that this is showing you those stacking and pulling columns historically, right? Oh, except for that you're talking about the pick on the left. No, you're talking about these numbers over here, right? Do you guys have Jigsaw latest version installer? I don't know what you're talking about. There's not a new version out, is there? Yeah, it sounds like all you're saying is, I want to see the stacking and pulling columns historically, right? And what I'm saying is, if you did that, what you're going to see is mostly noise. Because the issue is that the stacking and pulling information. So let me back up a little bit. You weren't here for this. Yeah. You weren't here for this. Where was it? Did I download it? Hold on. You just want the Jigsaw installer? Well, I think you can just get it. But I mean, without a license, it's not going to do anything. Noise is what I like. Yeah, where is it? Ba-dum. Not that one. I think I probably would have put it in this queue folder. These are like things that I need to read. Ah, it's right here. Okay. Let me read this to you. Okay. Here. Okay. Understanding the microdynamics of asset prices in modern electronic order books is crucial for investors and regulators. In this paper, we use an order-by-order Eurostoxx database spanning over 3 years to analyze the joint dynamics of prices and order flow. In order to alleviate various problems caused by high-frequency noise, we propose a double force graining procedure that allows us to extract meaningful information at the minute timescale. We use principal component analysis to construct microstructure models that describe the most common flow/return patterns and allow one to separate them into bid-ask symmetric and bid-ask anti-symmetric. We define and calibrate a vector autoregressive model that encodes the dynamical evolution of these modes. The parameters for the VAR model are found to be extremely stable in time. and lead to relatively high R2 prediction scores, especially for symmetric liquidity modes. When they say high R2 prediction scores, that means that their model predicts a significant amount of what's going on, essentially. Okay, because you might have a model, but it only tells you like a teeny tiny little bit about what's going on, and so it's not that useful. But R2 says that like it's catching a large degree of what's going on, essentially. The VAR model becomes marginally unstable as more lags are included, reflecting the long memory nature of flows and giving some further credence to the possibility of endogenous liquidity crises. Although very satisfactory on several counts, we show that our VAR framework does not account for the well-known square root law of price impact. So basically what they did was, and what was this person? I forget, the girl was Salma. Yeah. So basically what they did is they said, okay, there was a pull at this price, and there was a stack at this price, and there was a large transaction at this price, right? And it's aggregating all of that information on a minute by minute basis, and then all of those factors are turned into like a word. They're turned into like a word, or rather a token that you can place into a large language model. And then you do all of the fancy stuff that large language models do to identify patterns, essentially, in them. And what they found was that the market has, at least in the data that they looked at, two kind of main modes. One is where there's bid-ask symmetric, and one is bid-ask anti-symmetric. Which is to say, if there is a stack on the bid, I will also see an accompanying stack on the offer, right? Versus I'll see a stack on the bid and it will just kind of follow up as we move up, and then I'll see pulling on the offer, and it's anti-symmetric, right? And so you probably have noticed this in the liquidity yourself, right? But they are basically what they're saying is, with some machine learning and tokenization of things, you can actually make some pretty good predictions about what the liquidity is doing and where things are going, essentially, right? So what is that actually doing? Well, that is exactly what we do when we're reading the order flow. That's the way that your mind takes it. Your mind is filtering things out. It knows, okay, like there's always these little changes here and there. But here's a change that was actually significant. And then your brain kind of says, okay, this is that point in time where this particular thing happened, and then this particular thing happened. And those are kind of like milestones. And then you're combining those milestones together into like this pattern recognition that your brain is automatically doing on its own. And that's how we end up with order flow reading. So essentially what they've done is they've found a way to systematize and automate reading the DOM is really what this study is doing. And they found some significant things with it. And that's like, that research is like just only starting, and I bet that we continue to find things. But it did not account for the square root law. That is a key point in there, by the way. Anyways, so that'll get better. Okay, so relating it back to the thing that we were talking about. It's not about, I put a chart up here of the number of orders at every price, and then I see there was a large stack or a pull here at this spot, and here at this spot, and here at this spot. It's, you have to take all of those significant changes and combine them together into a word in your mind, right? So it's not just about the stacking and pulling, it's about the stacking and the pulling and the orders and how they're reacting to each other, right? There was a large order that came through here, and then there was a big order that was above it that pulled at the same time, right? And now that combination of things, that's your word that you go, okay, so what, given the current context, what's likely to happen next? Sort of a thing, right? That's what you want to do. So, if you're just showing the stacking and pulling at individual prices, what's going to happen is you're going to see, like, on the treasury, you know, there's like maybe 200 contracts worth that changes at all of these prices outside of these top two ones. And you're just going to see noise of that 200 going around. And then you'll see the bigger ones that happen on the inside. And you might think, oh, that's a big number. It's not a big number. And like, that's significant. But like, it's really not, because without being able to also see the orders that hit at the time and like the sequence of events about how they pulled in everything, it's basically like you can't use a chart, essentially. You have to kind of be watching it tick by tick and aggregating them together that way. So I don't know, but we did. I don't remember if the Santa Fe, the Santa Fe draws underneath of the chart, doesn't it? It didn't draw on the chart. I don't think I have one that draws on the chart. I could make that. There's a couple of problems. I mean, first of all, it is a lot of work to do. It's just a lot of extra, you know, doing things. And you'd have to save like all of that data so it can continue to draw it historically. And then it's also like a lot of drawing. So it's, those indicators are kind of expensive. Those are like gonna slow your chart down a little bit. So I don't know, like I could make an indicator like that. I don't know. Well, and D has paid me to make things in the past. I just don't feel like that would be a super productive use of things right now. But you know, if we were gonna like make it part of the larger suite and people really wanted it and everything, you know, we make what the customer wants, right? But no, right now we want to spend the time on a momentum strategy. We don't necessarily want to do things unless like we really have reason to believe that it's going to tell us something. And just from like the way that I watch things, right? Because I don't have a chart like that, but I am looking at those things, so I can tell you what that chart is likely to look like, right? And so I'm just saying, based on what I think that chart is going to look like, I don't think that you're going to find it super useful. Here's another thing I would tell you. Like, here's the approach that I would recommend that you take. Understand the market as we know it now. Absorb as much empirically proven information as you can. We have the square root law. We have some stuff about the Santa Fe model. We have this study that I just read to you. And maybe that's the sort of thing that we could probably aggregate together and duplicate that study and do our own research with it, right? You know, find your own proven behaviors, per se, right? Then, based on the information that you know, you can make some theories like, I think that if we do this, that we'll find this result, right? Because I have some reason to believe it. I have some underlying theory about what I think the market tends to do based on what I already know about what the market tends to do, right? And then I can go and I can craft an indicator and data science and everything to try and tease out that particular behavior, right? And that's the approach that you want to take, because the opposite side of that is, here's some data and here's some ways that I can envision potentially organizing that data. I'm going to put as many iterations of that up on the chart as I possibly can. And then I'm going to look and see if there's some sort of a pattern or if there's something useful in it, right? And the problem with that approach is that most things are random. So you might think that you're seeing a pattern in there, and it's really not. Like the chances are is that it's just happen chance, and there's not actually a thing to it. And right, so you've got this huge space essentially right here, right? And we're looking for this teeny tiny little spot right here, right? But if I go and I'm just randomly searching around and putting these dots over here, right? I might find a dot and look at that dot and be like, oh, that actually looks like it. But like there are so many dots compared to that X that I'm looking for that the chances are it's not actually that it just kind of looks like that and it's not actually that, right? That's a huge problem because the sample space is so large. So it's really a much better idea to say, here's what I know about the market so that I can kind of look around in here. Now I have a smaller space. Now, if I do find something and it looks like, the chances of it actually being a real thing are much higher. Essentially, it's still tough. It's still a tough find, but it's actually like a possible thing. Whereas before over here, it's like almost impossible. It's like 1 in a million, You know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't go down these kinds of weird paths, especially if you're not the programmer yourself. Wouldn't necessarily go down those paths unless you really have strong, like something that you're specifically looking for. You know what I mean? Like you've read a study or you've seen other stuff in the market that really suggests to you that if you can organize the data in this way, that it's going to be useful to you. Rather than, well, I can organize the data this way, let's do it and see what we get. Tends not to be a very effective approach. I've never found anything from doing that. And all of the indicators that I wrote, they were because I was seeing stuff on the DOM and or from studies that I knew kind of mattered. And I wanted to study them. So like with the stacking and polling thing, when you aggregate the stacking and polling together, you get those turns, right? You'll be like, oh, it's like the bids are larger and now the offers are larger, and like the amount that they change, because you can kind of make it multicolored so that you're like, this is like the overall amount and this is like the amount that's actually stacking. Like this is the max and this is the min sort of a thing. And you can like see when they cross the zero line, and they do it at certain points, and there actually is something to it. More complicated. There's a Markov system you need on top of it, I think, but it adds excellent color. I don't know. But it is something that we can do at some point, though. I don't know if now is a very good time, though. They would just go down the rabbit hole all week and then not do other things. You send me another video. Oh, it just looks like the same thing. That just looks like the GOMI indicators, isn't it? Man, it's been a while, but I think that this thing is the GOMI, right? That's this really weird. I can't even explain how they get this number, but there's kind of like this imbalance number that you get, and you kind of look at it and you go, oh, okay. Like up here at the top, it's normal, and then all of a sudden it's like this, so that must mean there's something coming or something. Highlighted with cyan color. what you're talking about. Or you're talking about that cyan color. You're talking about that and that. The red and green lines, sure. Okay. Barely know JD Vance, but that speech yesterday was kind of bland. I didn't watch it. Some numbers delta, bottom red and green price and sells, black number at the bottom is total volume. There's this other number, must not be on this one. What do they call it? There's another number that the Gomicators have. It's really weird. That's supposed to be like some sort of a measure of imbalance on it. No, it's not a percentage. COT, that's what it's called. COT. The COT number. I always thought that number was interesting because it just really does not explain what it actually is very well. The percentage of volume that the delta is made of. So are you saying that the COT is basically bids minus sells? Bids minus asks or something, or buys minus sells, essentially. Like it's yeah, anyways. The does it have a COT in there? Yeah. No, I know you don't care about this COT. I just you were it looked like the Gomicators to me, so I always think about the COT when I think about the Gomicators. Because I remember spending a lot of time trying to figure out what that was actually doing and what use it actually would have, and was never quite able to figure it out. Or like I would figure it out and then I would forget, and then it would be come up again and we're like, I can't remember. So, okay, what about the red and green lines? It's a line and it moves up and down. Okay. So here's kind of the problem, right? So I get a chart up, right? And then you say, okay, here's like a good example. Okay, so first of all, I don't necessarily know what the pattern is that you're seeing. You might see something that's completely different from me. And like what you're seeing might just be like hallucination, right? Like just like how we will like see faces in clouds and things like that, right? Like your brain wants to see patterns, right? But then even if we're able to establish, oh, okay, well, there's a cyan, so I don't know, why would that one matter? There's a one here. Why didn't you highlight that one? What is it about this spot and this spot that seems to matter? Okay. But then, okay, that's one instance of it. So really what would be way more interesting to me is like, you showed me a histogram, right? It's like, okay, here's this histogram. It's like this, but then all of a sudden, kitsch. That's not a very good drawing. Let's say that we have a histogram that starts like here, and it's like a almost a Pareto distribution, but then like there's this big gap right here, right? Right. Then I'm looking at the statistics and I'm like, oh, there's an edge right there. There's an edge right there. Like if I was seeing that in range, I would go, oh, okay. There's a difference between here and here, and I can treat those differently. Right? Now all of a sudden, when I'm aggregating a bunch of data together over a super long time period, and I can find a statistical aberration within it, right? highlighted that for you to see. Well, I mean, in this particular chart, it looks to me like there was probably a news event here. There was probably a news event here that caused a more volume. Let's see here. Because here they're trading 1,000, 1,000, 107. So these are probably minute by minute. These are probably minute by minute. There might have been something going on, or maybe a correlated asset. We move down. If this is the Treasury's 2000, it's nothing, right? So this is not just noise. It's 30 seconds. Oh yeah, it's even worse. And it probably is ZN, isn't it? That looks like ZN numbers. Especially since it's only happening across 2 ticks, right? Like, my bet is this is IJC, right? This is probably IJC, and then this is when we came back. This is the pullback, start of the press conference, right? Is that a chart of today? Is that a chart of today? Like if we come over to here, let's pull it over here. And I'm zooming in. It looks like, you know, this is that temporary little spike that we had after our initial jobless claims. Oh, you say it's 10 a.m. Eastern time? Oh, it looks like we finished the Spotify playlist again. Trying to convince me to listen to something else. You say it was 10 Eastern time? So 6? Over here? Is it just this right here? Well, dude, if we're just looking at that spot right there, just ignore that, man. Nothing happened. Nothing was going on. That would explain why the numbers are so low. So for that, it must have been further back. You say 10 Eastern time. 10 a.m. Eastern time would be 8 o'clock my time. Oh, so okay. No, so we're wrong. I'm wrong. I misread you completely. So that would be around here. Ah, yes, that makes more sense. Yes, that's this little jump up and then pop back down to there. Yeah. Well, I mean, like when I look at my charts, right? I'm looking at cumulative delta, not very clear. Was there a change in the spread in this area right here? No. No change in the spread. Not really a super big change in market order imbalance. This looks to me just like we had a little bit of a move up after the ECB. And now it's just kind of like, you know, digging a hole. Like everything after this, IMO is just noise. That isn't to say that there aren't microstructural dynamics going on in here. Like, could you potentially predict that it would flip back down right here, right? Because I think you're trying to say, oh, I could predict that that's going to happen and make the 2 ticks. And I'm kind of saying it's not worth your time. Plus, I don't really see why those 2 cyan numbers and why you highlighted those. I still don't see the pattern that you're pointing out there. Octavia says 30s is not actionable. Okay. Yeah, I guess we came down there and then they weren't able to trade that price, I suppose. Might be a little bit odd. That if that price was the best offer, that not only one contract hit into it is kind of a little weird, I guess. One of the things is that you get this sort of stuff that's like, yes, when this thing happens, this is what you'll see on the chart. But the chart is saying it as it's happening, right? So it's not anything that you can really use as a signal. You know, I've seen a lot of people make that mistake. Like there was one guy, they said, oh, I did this research on the book, and it basically says that like whichever side is smaller, it tends to stick that way 90% of the time. I was like, well, yeah, no duh. That's what happens as it's ticking. So you can't use that. It doesn't tell you anything. So you got to combine all of this other stuff. Find something that may actually be a predictive signal, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just blabbing now because I'm not really sure what your point is. That's my entire point. Oh, okay. In the first cyan, it finally went bid at 359. Okay, so you're saying this was the best offer and nothing traded at it. And then it ticked down and they had an opportunity to tuck up into here and they didn't trade into it. Is that what you're trying to say? Well, yeah, you say it's okay, but we're not doing anything. We don't have anything better to do, D. And look at the shitty behavior when that happened. That it moved down. It's true. Yes, that's true. Okay, so that is something. That is something. In that, there is an imbalance between market buys and market sells, and they're not getting any market buys, essentially, right? So you will notice the market will do this from time to time, where it's like people are kind of reluctant to hit it, and they don't want to show anything until like it happens, right? So like if I want to buy it, for instance, just take an example of how I execute, right? If I want to buy it, you know, at 11.5 perhaps, I'm not gonna buy it just as soon as 11.5. Like I wouldn't buy it at 11.5 now. I would buy it at 11. But I want to wait until it ticks up there. And then if it ticks up there and there's like 4,600, I might still be reluctant to hit into it with a market order, right? I want to hit it as she goes. So I'm going to wait until it like pulls. I'm going to wait until there's only like 500 contracts on the offer or whatever. And then I'll put it in, right? And so what the market will do sometimes is they will kind of try and tease it out. They'll say, okay, are there actually buyers out there? I'm not so sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my offer to see if anybody reacts to that. I pull that offer and I make that offer really, really tempting that it's going to be really easy for that to tick up. Does that convince the buyers to come in and buy it? And then you can kind of see how many orders react to that. And sometimes you will get this situation where they provide just the most perfect opportunity for them to take that offer out and like breach the highs and whatnot. And like nobody goes for it. There's like nobody there for it. Meanwhile, there's this guy that he has to sell. He doesn't have any sellers he doesn't have any buyers to sell against. So what is he going to do? He's just going to have to sell with his market orders down because he's not going to get these guys to hit into his offers, essentially, right? And that's what's kind of happening right there. You can't predict those, but you can see as it's happening, and that can kind of color what you're doing. And if I have a prediction for the flows, right? I didn't do the notes. You know, it's the second day without really taking notes. I feel so bad about it. But you know, if I'm predicting is some sort of an imbalance, right? Like I expect that there's going to be an imbalance short. And then I notice they're giving the buyers the best opportunity here and the buyers aren't going for it. That's where I'm going to get in. That's where I'm like, okay, the imbalance is short. There's not enough buyers to come in, so they're going to have to move it down in order to get the liquidity that they need. So now is the time for me to take my trade. Right. 6-1. Then the historical data DOM I have is the final set price. FYI, not okay. Although with all of that information, I don't know if you would necessarily see, like, the issue is that sequence of events that I just described. So if you had like a stacking and pulling indicator on there, I don't think it would show what happened there very well. In fact, I'm not even sure if this is showing, like, I'm not entirely sure if it really actually played out that way or not. I'm just kind of guessing based on what I remember. But when you like, this is the whole thing is like, I can see it on the DOM. I can see it on the DOM. I can't always see it in the chart because there's too many different quantization effects that can prevent it from showing up on the chart. So by quantization effects, I mean like maybe there was quantization means like where are the boundaries set? Like when do you say this candle starts and this candle ends? And if you change that by 10 seconds, you might get a completely different chart, right? And so that's why I say a lot of the things that I see in the DOM are too difficult to represent on a chart because of quantization. At least I have you think, yeah. I know the thing that you sent me the other day. Well, did you read that other book? You remember the book that we were talking about that I had talked about in my last video about momentum? Because the book that you sent me the other day, D, is very similar to that. It's just a little bit more like dry. Right. But they're basically sharing information about how momentum strategies work, which isn't day trading. It's really kind of like swing trading, or like maybe you could even call it like portfolio position trading. Derek Vival, are we still dumping? The S&P 500 does not look very good at the moment. No. There is definitely something going on over there. It's only to like the lows from before the open. But based on the way that it's been trading like this the past couple of days, I'm a little bit concerned for them over the S&P 500. The treasuries, so the treasuries, they had a little pop off of initial jobless claims and everything, which I think was appropriate. And it came back and then it didn't do anything the whole ECB press conference. And then when the ECB press conference was over, they shifted back up to the higher end of the range. And now it's just been like sideways again. Is bad news again? Maybe. So here's the thing that I think is going on, Derek, is they have been overly allocated into large tech companies. So when interest rates went higher, tech companies took a huge hit. They took a huge hit because those companies very much rely on the cheap interest rates to be able to invest money and yada, yada, yada. And so, like, they can't sustain the growth multiples that they had with the higher interest rates. So you had all of the tech companies sell off, and that was what we predicted, and it was all nice and good, right? And then we were left in this kind of like, okay, maybe we've tamed inflation, but it's going to take a long time for us to see And what do we do in the meantime, sort of a thing, right? How do we allocate our money now after that? And what the market decided was, well, we're underweight tech now because of this. And tech companies, because they're so big, seem to be the best at weathering this environment. And so they bought all of the tech stocks back up, and then that's when the market turned into the Magnificent Seven, where it was like those 7 stocks are like the whole thing that's moving it. And it has largely to do with the concentration, that everybody's only trading those things. And I don't even know if it's really that the economy was that good for those companies or what. Okay. But then that brings us to today. They're overcommitted to those stocks. And what's happening? Interest rates are going to go down. So interest rates going down, that's really good for small cap stocks. So what they're doing is they are selling off their big Magnificent Seven, big tech stocks, and they're buying small companies like Russell 3000 companies. And that's why if you look at the spread between the Russell and the NASDAQ, it's really, really moved. Basically, like the big tech companies have kind of declined and everything else has gone up. In fact, there are some analysts saying it may be the case that like 80% of stocks will be higher by the end of the year, but the index still be down because if those big tech stocks are down. Right? So basically the NASDAQ going down or the S&P 500 going down does not necessarily mean like there was something really bad happened or there was some change in the economy or something like that. It's just that rebalancing causes the index to go down, even though the amount of aggregate money in the stock market they're not taking money out of the stock market. They're just reallocating it, right? So that might be what's going on. So is bad news bad news? Well, so bad news really reinforces that we'll be cutting interest rates. So if we're cutting interest rates, that kind of creates that rebalancing. And so bad news right now does seem to be bad news for the indexes, but it's maybe not actually like really, they're really maybe not truly saying this is bad news, right? It might be a temporary thing. And once they're done with that rebalancing, then the market might go back to what we were kind of doing before, which is like when the economy looks like bad news is good news. When the economy is starting to look kind of poor and we're going to have to cut interest rates, the S&P 500 really likes that. You know what I mean? I have a few things to join in. Yeah, thank you, D. I always enjoy trying to figure out what you're talking about. I don't know what Octavius is talking about. But anyways, so but it's kind of curious to me, the timing and everything of it in the S&P 500. Like that really kind of seems to me like the sort of move that would come off of the heels of some sort of news event. So let's see what we got. Several top Democrats privately tell Axios the rising pressure of party congressional leaders and close friends will persuade the president to decide to drop out of the presidential race as soon as this weekend. When did this start? 8:25. So in the last 10 minutes. Oh, Fed's Goolsby, in real rate terms, we have tightened substantially. This is what the path to 2% inflation looks like. I don't think that it can be what Goolsby said, because we would have seen a reaction in the treasuries as well, and not just the equities. But then if it had something to do with like Biden dropping out, you'd probably see all markets react as well.
According to Axios, top Democrats see Biden dropping out as soon as the weekend.
Well, that Axios story is probably going to really shift things, because now that's the first time that we've heard somebody saying, like, we're thinking about doing it this time. So that's a big deal. And I have kind of been saying this whole time that I do think eventually he will drop out, because it's probably the best thing for everybody in the long run. Like, he's going to fight it, but I think eventually he will drop out. Thanks for the anytime, my friend. That's what we're here for. Man, you know, today's session went by awfully quickly. We're already getting towards the tail end of our session, aren't we? Well, yeah, that Axios story. Let's see here. I'm gonna link you guys the Axios story, shall we? Oh, it's not you, it's us. That link's not working. Axios, why you always do this? Why you always do this, huh? Oh, that's weird. If I go to their front page, I'm like, okay, let's get to it from their front page. Go deeper, 3-minute read. Oh, now it works. Now it works. Several top Democrats privately tell us the rising pressure of the party congressional leaders and close friends will persuade President Biden to drop out of the presidential race as soon as this weekend. Why it matters? The 81-year-old president, now self-isolating with COVID, remains publicly dug in, but privately, he's resigned to mounting pressure, bad polls, and untenable scrutiny, making it impossible to continue his campaign, the Democrats tell us. Behind the scenes, the private message distilled to its bluntest form, the top leaders of the party, his friends, and key donors believe he can't win and can't change public perceptions of his age and acuity and can't deliver congressional majorities. The president is being told that if he stays in, former President Trump could win in a landslide and wipe away Biden's legacy and Democrats' hopes in November. State of play, the pressure to step aside as a candidate has been rising to intolerable levels, especially over the last few days. Democrats fully expect polls after the Republican National Convention to show a possible blowout that could bring down Democrats in Congress, too. His choice is to be one of history's heroes, or to be sure of the fact that there will never be a Biden president. Wait, what? His choice is to be one of history's heroes, or to be sure of the fact that there will never be a Biden presidential library. One of the president's close friends told us, I pray that he does the right thing. He's headed that way. I don't know what that means. Okay, but are they saying that, like, if Biden continues to stay in, that he's not going to get a library? Okay, whatever. I didn't understand that sentence. Yesterday's AP poll showing nearly 2/3 of Democrats want Biden to drop out of the presidential race ricocheted through the White House and Congress. A panic pressure campaign is pounding Biden. It has been relentless and coordinated. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer told Biden in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware on Saturday, the day of the assassination attempt on Trump, that it would be best if he dropped out. ABC News first reported Dems on Capitol Hill wanted him out and worry they'll lose winnable seats if not. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, a mastermind of the campaign to get Biden out, told him that he could destroy Democrats' chances of taking back the House. We're told she's also worried about donations drying up. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries delivered a similar, if more subtle, message to Biden. Former President Obama has spoken loudly with his silence and his former aides trashing Biden in public. Bill and Hillary Clinton are doing what Obama is doing, and so are their former aides. We increasingly hear top Biden aides, including ones who initially urged him to fight on after his disastrous debate on June 27th, almost 21 days ago. They are now saying when, not if, Biden announces he's not running. Between the lines, Democrat insiders were hoping to avoid this. They love and respect Biden and appreciate his historic accomplishments. As we told you in a Behind the Curtains column 18 days ago, a Democrat official said Biden will not be dragged off the stage. The goal is to let him walk off the stage. But he wouldn't take the hints as loud as they got. So it's come to this. He's forcing people who like and respect him to resort to trying to shame him, a well-known Democrat close to the wing told us. Reality check. Biden can't be forced out. He has the delegates. No one can physically pry them away. He needs it to do it by his choice on his terms. If Biden wanted to stay in, he'd be impenetrable thanks to liberal leaders and the Congressional Black Caucus, but his closest friends believe he's fought the good fight and will succumb to reality. The White House told us about the Schumer and Jeffries conversations. The president told both leaders he is the nominee of the party he plans to win and looks forward to working with both of them to pass his 100-day agenda to help working families. The Biden-Harris campaign tells us if the facts matter, and they should, here is one. Biden is the Democrat nominee, and he's going to win this November. Okay. Biden is doing two new and telling things. Listening more and asking about Vice President Harris's prospects against Trump. That's why you see all the leaks about Biden being open-minded. He would hardly talk to naysayers a week ago. The most likely scenario is Biden bows out and endorses Harris, but also flicks to letting the delegates sort it out if the party feels otherwise. That would aim to diffuse any criticism that the Democrat Party was being undemocratic. Harris would be hard to stop, perhaps impossible, if the Obamas and Clintons joined Representative James Clyburn and the Congressional Black Caucus in backing her. It's not clear the coronation would be so fast and clear, however. The bottom line, don't underestimate how badly some Democrats simply want a ticket that can win in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Win those, and Democrats likely win the presidency, lose them, and they're toast. Well, I really don't think that Kamala Harris can win Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. That's kind of the problem. So it's interesting that he wants to endorse Harris, because does he really like Harris? Does he really think that she would be the best pick? But I also kind of wonder, like, I tell you what, if she does become the VP, like the DEI accusations are really going to get loud, right? Because I really don't think that Kamala earned it. I thought that she performed absolutely dismally in the primaries back in 2020. I was quite surprised at how poorly she did. And I think that she's done really poorly as vice president. And so if your performance matters at all, she shouldn't be the nominee. But they're going to push her over the line anyways. The issue, though, is that, like, people don't like her, too. Like, that's the other thing, is people don't like her. But I do understand why she would be hard to stop, because there are some people that want to vote for her just because of her background. And that's a big force in the Democrat Party, and I don't know if you can overcome it. Okay, now somebody asked the question. Oh, it's still the most recent comment. Who will be Harris's vice president? I think people were saying Whitmer. Let's see here. Predict it. Will Biden step aside? Can I predict now? I think that he will. I think it's like it should be like almost 90%. Let's see here. Can I get, is there one for vice president? Harris, the 47th president of the US, 37% yes. Harris on 2024 Democratic ticket, yes. How is that not, if she's president or vice president, does that count? That one. You see, this is why predicted isn't that big of a site anymore. People didn't like the way that some of the markets that they set were like the rules and stuff for them. They don't have one for vice president, so we can't see who it would actually be. Oh, there is a thing, Joe Biden. No, that's not it. That ain't doing it for us either. I think Gretchen Whitmer was one of them. Let's see here. Let's see what Google tells us. Here we go. The Hill. 4 days ago. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear. Roy Cooper. Josh Shapiro. JP Pritzker. Gretchen Whitmer, that's the name that I'd heard the most. Gavin Newsom, maybe. Harris Newsom. Oh man, I honestly can't think of a worse ticket, to be honest with you. Like in terms of like how I think it would perform, I can't think of a worse ticket than Harris Newsom. But oh man. The problem with Newsom is you can't pretend to be a centrist with Newsom on your ticket. I guess you can't pretend to be a centrist with Kamala Harris on your ticket either. So, do you really think that delegates would pick Harris? Like I said, people really don't like her. Okay, so here's another question. Here I'm over on Hot Air, seeing if they got a story on it yet. But what's the story that they got at the top of the fold right now? Is it 25th Amendment time? So that's another question. Maybe the reason that he's thinking about throwing his support behind Harris beyond the just like I'm kingmaker sort of a thing is that maybe they call the 25th Amendment, or maybe he resigns, or whatever the deal is, and we actually do have President Harris for the next 6 months or whatever. That's a possibility too. That's a very interesting possibility. I don't think that she'd be able to do anything, but who knows? Maybe she might make some really crazy executive orders. There are some executive orders that I think that she would like to do that Biden wouldn't have done. So I misses your old layout with the chart on top of the ladder. Yeah, it was. We don't have enough room anymore. But you know what? I didn't really use them. I didn't really use them. I guess part of the thing is I am trying to get the stream to think higher time frame. I think that I was like way too focused on small things, and as I've gone higher time frame, it really has improved my performance significantly. It also reduces my trade cells so that there's like it's a double-sided sword. And also, I guess I want it to be more focused on what do we know rather than like the charts and stuff. Charts are cool, but like I really feel like that we care too much about charts. You know, But the primary reason we have it out like this is because I want to take these trades on the micros. Sometimes I think about, like, maybe I should get multiple screens. Like, what if, like, one of the things that I think about is that I still have this sort of thing where I do feel like the market reacts to me sometimes. And that I seem to do better when I'm managing a position after the stream. Those tend to work out better for me for some reason. So I was like, what if I had another screen, and the other screen is the one where I like actually trading and placing trades, and then I give you guys a different screen that is optimized towards, you know, being interesting for you guys, essentially, instead of showing you like exactly what I'm looking at. You know, like we kind of did a little bit of that with having the S&P 500 chart over there. That's why we have the S&P 500 chart, because I don't hardly ever look at it. But, you know, I think part of the appeal is, hey, he's showing you exactly what he's doing and what he's thinking, right? So probably I won't change it. I don't know if how many of you guys actually actively watch the screen anyways versus you just listening. I'm guessing most people just listen. Well, I guess it's time for me to get going. It is 8:56, so changed a couple of things about my setup today, and I'm feeling comfortable. I do like this chair better than the other chair. Like yesterday when I was sitting in the other chair, I was like, we'll just give it a few days, etc., etc. I was like feeling a little bit of achiness in certain spots, but I was like, I don't know if that's actually a thing. Like, I might just be tired or sore from workout 2 days ago or whatever. But now I sit in this chair and I feel great. So I'm kind of thinking I'm going to stick with this chair. Maybe I'll sell that chair and buy a refurbished version of this chair that's a little nicer. Well, I don't think a lot of traders trade those micros, and I would think you want to increase views. Yeah. Well, I mean, there is a decent amount of volume in the micros, though, at least in the 10-year. I don't know. You know, the thing is like when it comes to what would increase viewers the most, I guess I kind of feel like that it doesn't matter what's on the screen. Because I don't think that people follow for the screen. I think that if I wanted to increase the number of viewers to the stream, I would have to avoid talking about politics and my own personal opinions as much as possible and talk about stocks. That's probably what would get more viewers and or price action. Man, but I don't care. I've really come to this kind of spot that is like, of course, I want to do whatever I can to make the stream successful, but or like more viewers on the live stream part, but I'm basically not willing to give anything to get it other than like my time and effort. But like, you know, I'm not going to sacrifice my trading for it. I'm not going to sacrifice the community, like attract type of community members that I don't think would fit in that sort of a thing. Like I'm not willing to change any of that sort of stuff. And so, you know, if that means that we can't have a larger stream, that's okay. Maybe better that way, right? Anyways, I'm gonna get going. You can think about that. I am, you know, I gotta say, I don't want to, because I kind of feel like I'm shooting you down, like Seth's never gonna change anything. Because I do want to be really open to, like, because this is your guys' stream too, right? So I do want you to be open about, like, how we can change things around and improve things. I do, and you know, like coming back to, I would like to show more of my indicators. So how do I actually do that? I don't know. I have to think about that. That's where it's like, well, I could just always show you this screen, and then people would. But even when I'm showing the screen and I show it for a long time, I don't necessarily get a ton of questions about them. So I don't know. I guess I would be open to changing the screen and or adding another screen and having one that's specifically for the stream view. But it, you know, it'd have to be very different. Actually, no, I take that back. I could maybe see myself doing multiple streams so that there's one that's like a general view and one that is an order flow. But I always want to have that order flow. I always want to be able to see that and go back and
US
review.
to sell
That was the whole
$69
reason we
billion
started that,
in
so I'm not
2-year
gonna get
notes
rid
on
of that
July
either.
23rd to settle on July 31st, and then to sell $70 billion in 5-year notes on July 24th.
What I
July
could
31st.
do,
The US
though,
to sell $70 billion in
what I could do though is I could get rid of the 2-year and the 30-year and the oil
in 7-year
and
notes
put
on
charts.
July 25th to settle on July 31st.
Right. Like it, change those out
US to
and
sell
have a chart of the
$76 billion in
ZN
3-month bills on July 22nd to settle on July
something like that.
25th.
Anyways, think about it. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Stay excellent, team.